There's the assumption in personal finance that time alone solves most problems. If you're responsible, consistent, and patient, compounding is supposed to do the rest. Over long enough periods, progress should become inevitable. And mathematically, that assumption is correct. Compounding works. It has always worked. It doesn't depend on opinion, intelligence, or timing. It follows simple rules that have been stable for generations. Yet most people never experience it. Not because they choose badly, not because they ignore the concept, but because compounding is a time-based force, and human behavior isn't designed to cooperate with time. Compounding isn't really a strategy. It's what happens when nothing interrupts a process for long enough. The misunderstanding. Most people understand compounding in theory. They can explain it. Growth builds on growth. Small gains eventually become large ones. The explanation feels intuitive and clean. The problem is that understanding something intellectually is not the same as accepting how it feels in practice. In the early years, compounding looks unimpressive. Progress is slow. The difference between effort and outcome feels almost meaningless. What's supposed to be powerful appears weak. This creates confusion. People don't reject compounding because they think it's wrong. They reject it because it doesn't behave the way they expect progress to behave. Compounding delivers delayed feedback. And delayed feedback is easy to explain, but hard to live with. The behavioral failure. Points. Impatience during the invisible years. The first breakdown happens early. Compounding begins with a long phase where results are barely visible. The numbers move, but not enough to feel rewarding. Effort accumulates without emotional confirmation. These years are quiet, repetitive, and unrewarding by modern standards. Most people don't consciously quit here. They simply stop believing the process matters. From a mathematical perspective, this phase is foundational. From a behavioral perspective, it feels like wasted time. Emotional exits during volatility. The second failure point appears during instability. Compounding requires continuity. But volatility introduces discomfort, and discomfort invites action. When values decline, people don't just see temporary losses. They experience doubt, regret, and second-guessing. Action feels like relief. Interrupting the process during these moments doesn't just reduce returns. It removes time from the equation. The loss isn't the downturn itself, it's the broken chain. Inconsistent contributions. The third failure point is inconsistency. Compounding assumes repeated input over long periods. But real life doesn't operate on clean schedules. Income fluctuates. Priorities shift. Attention fades. Missing a contribution rarely feels significant. It feels temporary and reasonable. But compounding is sensitive to gaps. Early interruptions don't announce their cost until much later, when the scale should have been larger. Small pauses accumulate into permanent reductions. Strategy hopping and over-optimization. The fourth failure point is restlessness. People are taught that improvement matters, that better decisions lead to better outcomes. So they adjust, refine, compare, and switch. But compounding doesn't reward cleverness. It rewards duration. Every change resets part of the timeline. What feels like refinement often trades time for novelty. The cost isn't visible. It shows up only in what never has the chance to grow. Expecting progress to feel linear. The final failure point is expectation. Compounding does not produce steady progress. It produces uneven progress. Long stretches of minimal change followed by short periods of acceleration. Most people interpret this unevenness as failure. They expect effort to map cleanly onto results. When it doesn't, they assume something is broken. In reality, the irregular shape is the mechanism working as designed. The time mismatch problem. The deeper issue is not knowledge, it's context. Modern life is built around fast feedback. Messages arrive instantly. Work is measured continuously. Progress is visible almost immediately. Compounding operates on a different timeline. Most of the results arrive late. Often, a majority of the outcome appears in the final portion of the time horizon. But most people exit in the early portion. A simple mental model helps here. Imagine pushing a heavy object across the floor. For a long time, nothing moves. The effort feels pointless. Then gradually, movement begins, and eventually, it requires less force to keep going. Most people stop pushing while it's still heavy. Reframing. Compounding is not a math problem to solve. It's a behavioral test to endure. The biggest threat to long-term outcomes isn't poor performance. It's interruption. Every pause, exit, or reset removes time. And time is the only ingredient calm.